Oh, I didn't see you there. Hello everyone, my name is Russell. We live in a really weird time, don't we? At a time when generative AI is being shoved down our throats by major companies and corporations, AI-generated photos and videos now almost being indistinguishable from reality, art and music created from AI which steals from actual artists, the list just goes on and on. It's only a matter of time before people start falling in love with these goddamn chatbots. Oh wait. Back before the sudden AI boom, this kind of stuff was unheard of. At most you'll see this in the realm of fiction, but now you can talk to ChatGPT about your whole day. Isn't that great? Oh brother.
This sort of got me wondering about how media, especially movies and TV, have portrayed AI before it became an actual thing we have to think about. Movies like Her, Ex Machina, AI Artificial Intelligence, they all talk about our own relationship to technology by treating it as a replacement for actual connection. Sometimes, in the case with Ex Machina or even The Matrix, it's a warning to not become too dependent on technology. It doesn't even have to be about AI, just tech in general, how quickly it's advancing, and in many cases how it affects everyday life, for better or for worse. Especially after the iPhone came out in 2007, the world has become extremely dependent on those tiny screens.
Now, why am I bringing this up all of a sudden? Well, on my quest to find an anime to watch that isn't from the 2010s onwards, I remember there was an anime on my watchlist titled Chobits. It's a series that started out as a manga in the year 2000 and later adapted into an anime in 2002, focusing on a guy who finds and befriends an android as they both live through everyday life, all while contemplating their relationship and purpose to one another. From what I recall, it was very popular back in the day and maybe influential. It was only a matter of time before I checked it out for myself. I expected something very wholesome and sweet, and while I did get that for the most part, I also got a lot of predictions that in one way or another became true today. So let's talk about it.
Chobits was a manga series created by the creative team Clamp, which are an all-female Japanese manga artist group. In an interview with two of the members of Clamp, they stated that they got the idea because they thought of how cool it would be if computers could talk to them, because at the time, the only thing they would get were error messages. Afterwards, they changed the story and oriented it towards an adult audience, which would later be approved by Young Magazine.
After reading that response, I'll explain some of the things we'll see here.
The manga would later debut on Weekly Young Magazine around September 2000. Later on, the anime studio Madhouse would adapt the manga to a full-fledged anime, which premiered on April 2nd, 2002 in Japan, ending that same year on September 24th. Considering how technology was at the time the anime and the manga was coming out, I can see how this may be appealing for audiences. Even today, this might be of interest to some people considering where technology is now, with a lot of parallels to our current reality. More on that later.
I'll mention this very quickly that what I'm about to say is primarily based on a first watch through, so if there's anything I missed, I'm deeply sorry. And as always, I'm going to be spoiling the hell out of this anime to make my point, so you have been warned.
The story focuses on this guy named Hideki Motosuwa, a farm boy in Hokkaido who, after being rejected from a university he was applying to, decides to move to the big city of Tokyo to go to prep school so he can take another entrance exam. He's noticeably obsessed with the idea of having these android-like figures called persocoms, pretty much this anime's equivalent to the modern-day smartphone. Seeing that everyone, even his neighbor Shinbo Himoru, has one, it makes him extremely jealous. That is, until he finds one thrown in the dump. After bringing it in and powering it on by touching its...
Right, so the censorship board is in the room with me right now. If I say or show anything raunchy, they're going to vaporize me, and honestly, I'm not interested in getting vaporized today, so we're gonna be dealing with them for a while.
Anywho, after powering her on by touching her, area, she wakes up saying only one thing.
Oh, I smile whenever I see a cute drawing.
Yeah, so this Persocom has no memory in her, but she's happy that she's powered on now, even going as far as to hug him. From there, the Persocom, now named Chi because that's all she says at first, and Hideki would live together while trying to make ends meet. For at least the first half of the series, it mainly focuses on the two living together, and Hideki training and teaching Chi things like basic manners and whatnot, all while struggling with prep school and a part-time job in order to support himself and her. Through this, you get to see the relationship grow over time, and it's honestly one of the cutest, wholesome, and funniest things you'll see when watching the show. For instance, as early as the second episode, you see Chi following every action that Hideki does, since she doesn't really know anything, and is using Hideki as her only source of reference. And you especially see this in episode 5, when Hideki struggles to study for the mock prep exam. He starts panicking, moving around like any other anime protagonist whenever they freak out. And she being Chi, she also copies these moves because again, she doesn't know anything else. For an anime, it's honestly really funny, and I always look forward to these moments. Or even episode 17, where Hideki left his wallet at work, leaving him no money for food. And considering that he's still studying very hard for another chance at the mock prep exam, even taking time off work to do so, she wants to do something in her power to help him, despite his initial refusal to take the money she earned from her job at the cake shop. So she decides to cook for him, which doesn't end well, leading to their landlord to help her. While this was definitely way later in the story, it shows how much she cares for the person that's been working so hard to provide for not only himself, but for her. She wants to help him because he's already doing so much. And keep in mind that she's been with him for close to an entire summer at this point, and she had already come so far from simply just saying Chi.
I'll be honest here. I had issues with certain shows, especially modern ones, where a character will learn something within a time frame that felt way too quick. A good example of this for me is Cultural Exchange with a Game Center Girl, which involves a British girl who immigrated to Japan. The whole point of the show, at least I thought, was on her overcoming the language barrier between English and Japanese, and yet she would become pretty fluent in Japanese by the 4th episode. I know, time jumps happen, but in my opinion it just felt a little too quick.
In Chi's case, she's learning how to live in a world filled with humans and Persicoms while also trying to rediscover herself. But here, it's a little more spread out throughout the entire run of the show. Like with episode 2, she learns to remember a phone number. By episode 6, she can do basic greetings and point at objects. By episode 8, we'll get to that in a bit, but the point still stands.
Perhaps it wasn't fair to compare a 12-episode anime with a 24-episode one, but to me, this is how you properly pace a character learning valuable skills. You don't rush everything within the first few moments. It takes time. And to me, it also shows how much Hideki cares for her to slowly ease her into these daily things.
Throughout the whole show, there's also this sort of subplot going on involving Chi's origins. This goes from Hideki going up to Persicom prodigy Minoru Kokubunji and learning that she might be sentient after multiple failed data extractions, to the picture book that Chi reads that puts her in a trance-like state to the point of creating a blinding white light, or even the various times when other people that aren't Hideki try to touch her, causing her to freak out because a voice in her head told her not to let anyone touch her there other than Hideki, all while putting every other Persicom in a trance. God damn, she really is overpowered. With all this building up over time, you'd expect Chi to be like the very thing that could destroy all Persicom life as we know it.
No, her whole purpose in life is just to live.
Let's go back to those picture books Chi reads for a moment. The contents of those books are very eerie in nature. They talk about someone searching for their one and only. As it turns out, Hideki's landlord Hibaya Chitos wrote these books as a way to guide Chi back to her old self when she used to be named Elda. Hibaya was actually involved in the making of Chi because she couldn't conceive children. So, her late husband, who's the creator of Persicoms, created some of the most powerful Persicoms in existence to be their children, with their own feelings and aspirations. It was dubbed the Chobits series. Chi's purpose in life is to find love, to find her happy ever after, and once she does, she can share that happiness with other Persicoms, hence why every one of them gets put in a trance as well, though I'll get more to that later.
This leads to a really interesting discussion. Where I feel the anime truly shines in my opinion is when it gets to talking about the implications of being in love with something that isn't inherently real.
This is something that'll be slightly brushed on early in the show, with Minoru warning Hideki not to fall in love with Persicoms, as he thinks it's in its best interest, and this will be discussed further in later episodes. For instance, in episode 15, it's revealed that his prep school teacher Shimizu sensei is in an affair with Hideki's classmate, neighbor, and friend Shimbo Himoru after her husband became more and more infatuated with Persicoms than her, to the point where she found herself locked out of her own home via chains. Yumi-chan, Hideki's co-worker who has a tendency to tease him from time to time, also delves into this further in episode 20, describing how people would eventually not be side by side with each other and instead being with Persicoms, which, wait, isn't that like now? How people would much rather be looking at their phones than be with other people, depending on the severity of technology use? In relation to this, Chi's manager, Ueda Hiroyasu, would describe how he fell in love with a Persicom to the point of marrying her, much to the ridicule of others. Once that Persicom started breaking down, he couldn't push himself to get her fixed, because it would also mean it would lose its memories. He wants to keep remembering the Persicom as is. She was real to him, but it also hurt Yumi-chan, who fell in love with him but realized she can't compete with a Persocom, who also happens to have the same name as her. Clearly, these moments can lead to a very interesting conversation in regards to our use and over-reliance on technology. Depending on the usage, it can be enough to tear people apart, and especially at a time when things like ChatGPT and character AI are a thing. There are multiple cases where people are falling in love with these generative AI chatbots to the point where they are now ignoring the people around them. Despite all the funny and sweet moments between Hideki and Chi and the potential that these two would fall in love with each other, you end up forgetting about those implications. That who or what you're falling in love with isn't exactly real. It's like being in a parasocial relationship with your favorite streamer claiming that Rem is your waifu. They don't know you exist, they're just there to entertain you. So how does the anime go about justifying this kind of relationship? Well, let's go back to Minoru Kokubunji and the reason why he told Hideki not to fall in love with Persocoms. In episode 11, it's revealed that one of his Persocoms, named Yusuke, was made in the spitting image of his late sister who died of illness. He gave her every memory, every habit, every like, dislike, etc. But he eventually realized that he will never be able to get her back since Persocoms are just automatons running programs at the end of the day. Episode 23 leans into this further when Yusuke sacrificed herself trying to hack into the Chobits database and almost short-circuiting herself. She lost a bit of Minoru's sister's memory in the process, but he would go on to say that nobody can replace Yusuke either, and he would much rather make as many memories with her as possible, effectively allowing him to move past grieving. Going back to Yumi-chan and Ueda Hideyasu in episode 24, he explained that there are things that a Persocom can and can't do, and similarly, a human works the same way. Once again, it didn't matter if Yumi-chan were a Persocom or not, he would still fall in love with her. And to add on top of this, Shimbo in episode 25 would reflect on his recent engagement with Shimizu sensei. He realized that he didn't hate the man who fell in love with Persocoms, rather he hated people with half-assed relationships, as he would put it, and that Shimizu's husband going after Persocoms is comparable to him going after another woman. She would still be hurt regardless. With Shimbo telling Hideki that he won't stop him, this becomes enough of a reason for Hideki to finally confess to Chi that he's in fact in love with her after contemplating it all this time. So with all three of these examples in mind, you can grasp the message the anime is trying to portray, that it doesn't matter who or what you are. It doesn't matter how different you are compared to another person or computer program. They are just as deserving of love as you are. They are just as deserving of being with their one and only. And similarly, they are just as deserving of loving you as you are loving them back.
In hindsight, it's a very wholesome and well-meaning message. While the anime talks about computer programs, you can kind of see how that message can translate to real life. Then again, what makes us uniquely different is what makes us beautiful as human beings. But in a day and age where this kind of relationship with AI models is now more feasible than ever, some may say that this message sort of doesn't work anymore. If people were watching it now like I have, it may be somewhat misconstrued as, oh, he loves an AI, why can't I? That kind of relationship is not viewed as healthy, nor in my opinion should it ever be viewed as healthy. Look, I'm sure Clamp wasn't really thinking of these implications at the time the manga was being written. It's just a love story at the end of the day. And while I do think it has some well-meaning intentions, there's also a chance that it may not hold up too well in our current slop climate.
That's not to say the anime is totally perfect though. I do have some gripes with it, mainly with the ending. This is where I'll bring up another character. Freya, Chi's older sister in her past life. Throughout the anime, this character would pop up mysteriously throughout, being the one telling Chi not to let anyone do things to her in areas that should only be reserved for Hideki. She's also the one responsible for causing every other Persocom to go into trance, with many of them saying that they hear a familiar voice. Turns out, that's her. Created by Hibaya's husband after realizing that she can't bear children, Freya's main purpose in life is similar to Chi's, to find the one made just for her and obtain her true happiness. But where she found it was a problem. She found it through her father, or her creator. You know, that content warning is starting to make a lot more sense now. Unfortunately, she couldn't do anything about it because he was already in love with Hibaya, and this pained her so much that she shut down and became bedridden. She decided that since Freya can't do anything anymore, that she will download her soul into her heart so that she will live among her. This was how Chi was able to later gain contact with Freya around episode 11 with the help of Hibaya's picture book. This all comes to head around the climax when Hideki confirms to Chi that he is indeed in love with her, causing a certain code to start running. Every Persocom starts going into a trance and Chi begins floating into the air, potentially causing pandemonium. Even with two other Persocoms who are immune to the code and were assigned to shut the program down by the government because, you know, danger to Persocoms, the program suddenly just stopped, and Freya had fully taken over. And this is where all my problems begin. So apparently the reason Freya took control was because while Chi was able to run the program, she realized that she can't be with Hideki because of her own inherent limitations. Supposedly, even if they do truly love each other, her existence would be painful because she can't do certain things that a human can.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm not going to lie, I was so confused by this ending, especially considering the fact that 2 episodes prior, we had Yumi-chan confirm with Ueda that it didn't matter if she was a Persocom or not. She was there when this confrontation happened. I guess what they were trying to say here was that she is no different in regards to comparing her own limitations to that of a human. In tangent, you shouldn't have to compare your own self-worth to someone else, and the anime constantly brings this up throughout. It actually took me a while to realize that those picture books really got her questioning her entire existence and purpose, and I suppose the moment Ueda said that Persocoms have limits became a triggering point for her. But even then, if Yumi-chan understood that she shouldn't have to compare herself to Persocoms, why is Chi doing the same thing 2 episodes later? Maybe because she saw humans constantly comparing themselves to Persocoms and humans going after humans in this case that she believed she was inferior? Is it because she's more sentient than any other Persocom and realized that her existence is not worthy of love? I don't know, I feel like the anime didn't explain this properly unless I'm truly missing something.
Please, for the love of God, tell me I'm missing something. I feel the most wrong here.
Eventually, after Hideki tells the meaning of happiness, Freya would give up control of Chi since she found what Freya couldn't, the one just for her. Chi runs the program again, and it turns out that scary code was actually to give every Persocom the ability to have emotions, as the creator supposedly wanted every one of his children to share in Chi's happiness. In the end, both would live happily ever after, though this is such a conflicting and kind of contradicting ending, all things considered. There's also some other gripes I have with the anime, but they're mostly minor. The pacing throughout the show, for instance, was pretty consistent, but there were times where it just took a massive halt. For instance, episode 12 is just a filler episode where Hideki got scared of an internet horror story, believing that a room in his apartment complex was haunted. Save for the ending where Chi supposedly heard Freya's voice, it doesn't add anything to the story. Obviously, there are various aspects of the anime that just didn't age well, especially if you're looking at it from a modern lens. For instance, Shinbo making Shimizu-sensei stay with him at a hot springs resort until she accepted his marriage proposal is pretty egregious even by early 2000 standards. And aside from Shinbo and Shimizu-sensei, there was another age gap relationship that wasn't discussed as such, that being Yumi-chan and Ueda Hideyasu, which is between a 17-year-old and... wait, how old is Ueda? 39? Oh, sweet Jesus. And then there's the fan service, which... yeah, right now I would like to live, so I can't show anything. Thankfully, I have a statement prepared. As it's common with anime, it's natural that unnecessary fan service is going to be a thing throughout Chobits. I do fully admit that I went into this show blind without realizing the extent of it, so I was actually caught off guard by the amount of things Chobits showed as early as the 2nd episode. From Minoru Kokubunji's Persocoms dressed in bared maid outfits, the obligatory beach episode, to the fantasy sequence at the beginning of episode 7 where all the main female characters are seen lusting over Hideki. It gets to the point at times where it becomes too much and sometimes may come off as borderline uncomfortable. I mean, then again, one of the things Hideki wants to do with a Persocom is watch the P word. Thankfully, this becomes less of an issue as the anime progresses, but it just adds to the fact that the fan service was never necessary to begin with. At the very least, it should have been made less frequent. Or maybe I'm just overreacting, I don't know.
This is probably a good time to talk about the characters in detail.
The entire anime focuses on Hideki and Chi, so this is where my focus is going to be for them as individual characters, though I will brush on the other characters afterwards. I mentioned prior that we first meet Hideki as this sort of eccentrically awkward prep school student from Hokkaido, obsessed with the idea of having a Persocom because everyone in Tokyo has one. Initially, my thoughts on the guy was that he was a bit of a horn dog because he wants to watch...
Do you have anything else better to do?
A word that rhymes with corn or something. I don't know. He wanted to watch that one getting a Persocom. He might also have a thing for glazing women initially. It sort of reminded me of Ataru from Urusei Yatsura, though it's not really prevalent with Hideki. They're just minor comments he brings up either out loud or in his head. And don't worry, they don't happen frequently. He's also not really the most tech savvy, which sort of makes him the prime subject to learning new trends with technology and especially the internet around that time. Like, I already briefly talked about the haunted apartment episode, but there's also episode 13 where Hideki plays an MMO for the first time and learning the quirks of it while trying to find Chi when she didn't appear with him and his friends. But all of that is not really what his character is about in my opinion. Really, his relationship with Chi demonstrates how kind-hearted and patient he is to teach her and to teach himself. Many times he acts like a caring partner, making sure that Chi has a roof over her head, making sure she's well maintained, and making sure she understands the world around her. He cares about her so much that he would always find himself getting into plenty of shenanigans. Many funny, but showcases his dedication to making sure she's okay. And you see that very early on. Like episode 6 has his power cut off due to unpaid bills, and with Chi's battery slowly dying, he would go out of his way to carry her to his workplace, even climbing a whole wall just to get there. Hibaya was able to help him get Chi power back on, but that's just one of many examples of how much he cares for her. Tomokazu Tsukita plays Hideki in the Japanese dub, and I have to compliment how he portrays Hideki as clueless yet caring. The soft and occasional urgency in his voice really matches how the character is portrayed throughout the entire story, and it really helps make Hideki come to life. When we first meet Chi, the one way I could only describe her was blissfully unaware, which just makes her such a lovable character. It makes sense. She starts off as a blank slate at first, happy that someone managed to power her on, and throughout her time with Hideki, she's just always kind of vibing really. Nothing can actually bother her. It's just Chi, her own morbid curiosity, and her happiness being around Hideki. She's always learning and exploring new things over time, which can lead to very funny moments, like I already mentioned how she has a tendency to copy Hideki's every action, and sometimes very scary moments, like in episode 7 where she was manipulated to join a campgirl site for personal comms when she was trying to find a job to make Hideki happy. And that's something I noticed with Chi. Her whole world and existence in some way revolves around Hideki, because if he's happy, she's happy. There might be an argument to be said that because of this, she doesn't have much opportunity to really think for herself or to gain any form of independence from him, and I see how that can be a fair assessment to make, but at the same time, isn't a relationship meant to be a two-way street? Much like Hideki, Chi clearly cares for him to make sure that he takes care of himself. Why else would she want to find a job to support him? Why else would she go out of her way to learn how to cook curry when he doesn't have enough for food? Apart from the fact that, well, she's a persecom, she's kind of like his servant, you end up feeling this deep connection between her and Hideki, because he's already giving so much for her and she truly wants to give back in some capacity. Of course, there's the whole mystery surrounding her origins that takes a backseat at first before becoming the forefront in the end, but I also find that none of that really matters at the end of the day, because her whole purpose is, like I said, to find the one that makes her happy, which she ends up finding. Rie Tanaka voices both Chi and her sister Freya in the Japanese dub, and while she portrays Freya as this mysterious voice filled with pain, Chi in contrast has this calm innocence that just works with the kind of character she is. She's obviously not very emotive, typical for an android at this time, but you could feel the happiness flowing with her performance. It just adds to how sweet, funny, and blissfully unaware she is throughout. Of course, there are other characters throughout that played a big role in the anime. Shinbo Himoru, Minoru Kokubunji, Chito Shibaya, Takao Shimizu Sensei, Yumi Omura, Hiroyasu Ueda, Yuzaki, Sumomo. It's just a reoccurring cast, but they play a big part in helping push the narrative and themes of the anime. Even though the main focus is on Hideki and Chi, all of these characters have their own version of overcoming loneliness, creating connection, and just loving each other. Every one of the voice actors involved in voicing them did a really great job. I will discuss each of them individually, but we'd be here all day.
I do want to give a bit of a shout out to the English dub of the series. While I mainly watched the Japanese dub, the bits I heard from the English one is actually pretty good in my opinion, so depending on your preference, either one should work just fine.
I cannot stress just how relevant this anime is today with everything that it brings up. Sure, you can take one glance at the fan service within the first 2 episodes and brush it off as a thirst trap of an anime like some people I've seen, but it really does have a lot of nuance to it that I'm not sure I'm fully grasping. From the persecoms being comparable to smartphones and generative AI, our own over-reliance on technology, and how we may use technology as a replacement for companionship. This anime discusses all of these topics while still staying consistent to the developing relationship between Hideki and Chi. While the main message is bittersweet, I end up wondering if that message in this context would work today considering how much technology has advanced and how humanity's usage of it has changed. But then I also wonder, does it matter? Again, I'm sure Clamp wasn't thinking of these implications at the time they were writing the story, and I know I'm mainly looking at this from a modern day perspective. But once again, looking past all the obvious metaphors to today, you still get a wholesome love story about learning to love each other and your own differences, discovering who you are and what your purpose may be. In Chi's case, it's to bring happiness to all persecom life by finding her own happiness, and she found that through Hideki nurturing a relationship with her. As the ending tries to drive home, you don't need to compare yourself to others. You can only be you, and people will love you unconditionally for it.
As another side note, apparently this series is connected to another clamp series known as Angelic Layer, but that's a story for another day. Did the anime predict our future? In a way it did. Did it also age like milk? Yes and no, but mostly no. Sure, there's the outdated and unnecessary fan service, and a relationship with an android is more than feasible today with our current technology. But this is also a story that teaches about learning to love ourselves for who we are, learning to love each other, and learning to love our differences. And I bet you with 100% certainty that this message, despite everything the anime shoves at us, still holds true to this day. What I'm trying to say is that we can definitely learn a thing or two from Hideki and Chi's relationship. Despite the fact that it's a relationship between a human and a robot, that's not to say that what they found in their relationship can't be applied to our own. Just try not to get into a relationship with an actual AI chatbot. With that being said, my name is Russell. Until then, hanggang sa muli.